So for this fats and oil experiment, we're looking at fats and pastry. So we're looking at the flakiness and factors contributing to flakiness in a pie crust, as well as what are the differences between tenderness and flakiness. Are they the same thing? Are they different? And you'll be able to evaluate pastries in order to discriminate the qualities created by the use of different fats and oils. So here are your instructions for this virtual lab. So if you, again, click on, and let me show you, move my head here. If you click on Procedure, Fats and Pastry, that's where your experimental protocol is located. And here are some additional resources to help you with your lab report. So we have an article here looking at the science behind pastry, as well as one from Epicurious. So what is the best fat to use in a pastry? So it's very similar to the experiment we're doing here. And then some hints to see data, to telling you where the data is located for this lab. So this was the basic recipe followed for all of the different conditions. So again, there's 47 grams of fat, 1.5 grams of salt, 87 grams of just all-purpose flour, and then 29.5 milliliters of water possible into the pastry. And as you'll see in the YouTube video posted of me performing the protocol, we're just making a mini pie crust. Okay, I called it a Pop-Tart to get Jesse to try it. So again, we just mixed the dry ingredients together and then added the fat and used a pastry blender to cut the fat into pieces until they were the size of tiny peas, and then just added enough water for it to come together. So as you'll see, I added more water to some, less water to others. In the oil condition, I made a note that I didn't add more water than enough to cover my hand. And in that, I didn't use a pastry blender at all. I just mixed it with a spoon, as you'll see in the video. So of course, all the dough turns out into a ball, and I used a template of a cookie cutter, a circle cookie cutter. So my wafers were circles. So they were 3-inch diameter circles. And everything was about the same, all 1/4 of an inch thick. The one thing I didn't do, and I made a note of this in my data table, is I did not prick with a fork to avoid blistering during baking. So that is a confounding factor, a limitation, but all of the conditions were the same. So nothing was pricked with a fork. And then everything was baked at 425 in a conventional oven until a golden brown. And these are the types of fats that were used. So I'm going to pull up the data table to show you. One second here. Here they are. So we use shortening, which is Crisco. We use lard, which is pig fat. We used a stick margarine, just generic brand. A stick butter, so regular salted butter, which is just generic. And also some canola oil, which was a generic brand as well. So these were all room temperature. The experiment was also repeated using cold versions of the fat as well. All right, with everything except the oil. Okay, so all of the data here, you'll see that I'm asking you to do everything in the table that's in red. So for penetrometer readings, I'm asking you to calculate the mean and the standard deviation. The height of 3 wafers, so the 3 circular wafers, it has already been entered for you. For the surface, like what the surface looks like, the color and the texture, I'm asking you to describe that based on the photos that I give you. The flavor, we had filled that out, and I filled out a couple of the texture for photos that are not available. The number of chews, so that's our kind of subjective measurement of tenderness, is there as well, and then any tasting notes I do have available. Okay, so that is the pastry. And then I will show you the photos from which you're going to use the data. Okay, so in addition to the video I have, here are the still photos. So again, this is the pastry dough that before it was rolled. These are the pastry dough circles pre-baking. So as you can see, nothing was pricked with a fork here. And then here are the room temperature conditions post-baking. So they're all labeled: butter, margarine, shortening, lard, and oil. And then just a bigger picture of that, maybe a more clear picture of that here. Same order. And then here's a side view to show the height of the wafers. So again, butter, margarine, shortening, lard, and oil, and then the cold butter and lard. And here's cold butter and lard. And then here's how we did the height of 3 wafers measured in centimeters. And the one pictured here is the room temperature shortening condition. And then for each of the items pictured here, so this is the condition, butter, and then the picture is basically the layers, the surface, and everything you need to figure out the appearance. So we have the cold condition here and the room condition here. If there's no cold and room labeled, cold condition and room temperature labeled on the slide, then it's just room temperature for you to evaluate. Okay, so that's how you'll evaluate the flakiness, blistering, etc. All right, so I hope you have fun doing this lab. And if you have any questions, please email me or post to the general questions forum for me to answer for everybody.